Now, a lot of you and a lot of people ask me the question, well, but don't we have a test that shows that this is caused by this virus? Now, sometimes, because I have a little bit of a smart alecky tendency, I must admit, I ask the people, do you know what the test was? Or do you know what the test is? So far, essentially, nobody has known what the test is. The test is called a RT-PCR test. It's otherwise known as a viral load test. And the test is a surrogate test. It was developed by a guy named Kary Mullis, who was given the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for essentially inventing the technique of this test. And he said very specifically, you cannot use this test to either prove infectious etiology or to diagnose an infectious disease, which of course is interesting because if you can't use it to diagnose an infectious disease, that of course begs the question of what can you use it for? But let me back up here and describe what a surrogate test means, because this is very important to understanding the situation we're currently in. A surrogate test means that in a situation where you're trying to prove causation, you have to have a gold standard test. And those postulates, like with meningococcus, that is a gold standard test. It's reliable 100% of the time. And as some people know, I like to speak in analogies here. So here's a way to understand this. Let's say you want to go to a town and you want to know how many feet there are in that town. And I don't mean inches and meters, I mean the feet at the bottom of your legs, right? So the question is, how many feet are there in Podunk, Alaska? So obviously the gold standard test for that is to go to the town, have everybody come to the town square, and then count their feet. So then you have 1,112 feet, and you know that that's accurate. And then you go to the next town, and you say, okay, everybody come to the center, 100% of the people come, you count their feet, and there's 3,240 feet. You do that 3 or 4 times, and you've now established a 100% foolproof way of knowing how many feet there are in that town. Now, in that situation, you can use a surrogate test. And so what do I mean by a surrogate test? Then you say, well, I don't want to count everybody's feet. I know that everybody who has a foot has a shoe, and everybody who has a shoe has a shoelace, and there's only one shoe store in town that sells shoelaces. So I'm going to go to that shoe store and see how many people bought shoelaces this year, and that's going to tell me how many feet there are. That's what